What's going on, people? So, I'm gonna do this live thing, hopefully relatively quickly, for how many things are out here on the floor and whatnot. So, here's a quick little backstory or whatever. So, I've done like a whole bunch of Yeezy unboxings and such over the last however long, but today I was finally getting around to doing the actual reviews and stuff, right? And I didn't want to do the comparisons within each video because it just takes forever. Then there's all this editing I have to do that I don't want to do. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do all the things that I would have done in the video today in this little live session. So that's what's going to happen right now, right? So if you've seen those past things, some of this might seem a little familiar to you, right? But whatever, there you go. You didn't ask for the backstory, but I often give one anyways. We're going to kick things off with the first pair here. So this is what is this thing called? The Yeezy Foam Runner in MX Cinder, if I recall correctly, right? So I'm not going to get all into like everything about it, but because this is more like the comparisons and such, right? So you want my personal thoughts, those will come along later. But the thing about these is that given that they're from like the MX line or whatever, they do kind of follow like the standard MX styling, which is to have a whole bunch of colors just kind of splished and splashed around in there, right? So it makes for a pretty cool look. It really does, right? So, and I also have this one over here too. This is the MX Dark Rock or something. The other one was the MX Oat. So very similar, right, in the way that the treatment is of the colors and such. But I think that this is kind of a cool concept. It's just I'm not a huge fan of the colors that they chose to use on here. But that's just a personal thing, right? I mean, maybe some people are into it, maybe they aren't, whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? Because they're not making them anymore now, are they? But anyway, so that's just kind of how these came out to me. There's the bottom and stuff, so you can kind of see a little bit more of what I'm talking about, right? Now, moving along, anyways. Homegrown Kick says it's Yeezy evening. No, what made you think that? And so then next we have this. You might be looking a little small because it is like my size is a 9. This is a 5. So it's not for me, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So this is the Yeezy slide in the Onyx colorway, right? And the weird thing about Yeezy and everybody else too, right, is you'll often see things with the same name, color name, that look quite different. So this over here is the Onyx 350, right? So it's pretty much a straight up black. See what I'm saying there? And this is the Onyx for the Yeezy slide. So it's a little darker over here by a lot. And this one kind of matches up more with what you see down on the midsole because it kind of has that transparent sort of thing going on or whatever. So if you were looking at these and you're thinking, oh, well, Onyx, those are the black ones, right? I should buy these because I've been looking for some black ones. I think they do actually have some that are labeled as black, and hopefully those are black because there have been other times when like they put out shoes that were called black and were not. Because this one right here, you might remember the black Static 350 from a couple years ago, very much not black. Like I did a comparison during I think the Onyx review or something, so you can look at those there. But either way, the Easy Slide, I got no problems with it. I'm just saying that if you're looking for a certain color, this may be a bit of a lie to you, right? So again, I think there is an actual black pair out there. So buy the black pair if you want a black pair. Moving along, this right here is the Yeezy 350 in the Carbon Beluga colorway. So very similar to some of the Yeezys that they had been doing a while ago with like the Supply 350 and all the stuff on the side and whatnot, all these little stripes and whatnot. So this one right here, as I've said a million and one times, is easily my favorite Yeezy 350, right? It's the semi-frozen yellow. Now, when I look at these, like the models or whatever, this is definitely like my favorite of all the looks that they've been through, because you had some that, let's see, like the MX ones I was just talking about, those were a little bit different. Then, you have like, again, the cinders, not the cinders, but the black statics or whatever. And I don't have any that are like plain colored or whatever. Actually, I do. They're just a little further. But this was the look that I preferred the most. So when they put these things out, I was pretty into it. And you got all this nice orange peeking through or whatever. So I think it's a pretty cool look. And it's different because there were so many that they made over the years or whatever that looked pretty similar. And I'll kind of get into that with some other releases over here. And so when I saw this one coming up, especially given that it was going to be one of the last ones that they put out, I was like, oh, well, yeah, I am on board. Sign me up. which is not how that works. You have to sign yourself up for those raffles. It's not automatic. Sometimes they do give you early access, but it's not usually when you want it. Moving along. Up next, we have this. This is the Granite Yeezy 350, right? And it was one of those ones that came along and I was like, oh, well, that looks very familiar. In the initial pictures that I saw, it looked like it was going to be very much the same. Jeez, in this camera, it does look very similar. In person, you can see a slight difference, but either way. So I thought that this was basically going to be a slightly lighter or maybe slightly darker version of the Slate 350. And that's pretty much how it looks, especially once you kind of bring it back a little bit from the camera or whatever. I mean, you get a little bit closer in there, you can kind of see a slight difference or whatever, right? Nothing too drastic. And even then with the Jade Ash or there's another name for it. I can't think of what the other name was, but either way, whatever the other name was, even these look a little similar, right? And this is actually more of a bluish sort of color, close to like the Israfils and things like that. But what I'm getting at here is that a lot of these did look very similar, and that's fine because the way I see it, if you liked this one but you didn't quite get through on it, you could probably get this one, and it's pretty close, so maybe it'll get the point across or whatever that you were going for. It's not an exact color match, obviously, but I'm just saying it's close enough. I mean, I would say that the Slate here is probably your best second option if this was something you wanted and didn't quite get on it. But it's still the same thing that I've said about a lot of the past releases. Everyone that has come out, I guess minus this Carbon Beluga, I've seen something pretty similar. And that is a bit of an exaggeration, but the vast majority have had something similar. Moving along. Even this one right here. This is the Yeezy 350 Compact in the Slate Onyx colorway, right? So again, pulling out this here Onyx one, right? So it's got some actual black in it. It looks like whatever. It's a little dim in here because I had to turn down the lights so that they weren't all glaring into the screen. But it's mostly going to be like the gray, right? So it's not super black overall. It's just one of those colors that's down in there. And I will say, being honest, like I'm not a huge fan of this one. I kind of talked down on the Slate Bone when it came out, but I actually like it more, which is weird, you know. So I bought these because I needed a new pair of concert shoes, and these seemed like they'd be a good idea or whatever. But still, like that's kind of what you're looking at here as far as like the uppers go and everything. I think what it is like with this one, you can kind of see like a little bit of the contrast more in some ways, and it just kind of doesn't look like just such a bland mix of things. This kind of just comes off that way, at least to me. So that's why, even though I didn't care so much for these when I did the review, comparing these right here definitely get the nod. And really, I wasn't even going to go for these, but because they didn't sell like at all for the first several days, I figured, you know what, since I don't have to work for it, I might as well just pick up a pair and just go with it. So that's what happened here. And I'm going to hold on to these for just a second, talk about these too, because it's somewhat similar. So these right here both kind of have a similar sort of look in some ways, just because of the way the coloring is or whatever, you know, with the black and the gray and, well, black and gray. This has like various grays in it, but I'm just saying. And these came with this little card, this little thing here, so you can show all your friends and whatnot that you're not hateful and that you're okay with Jewish people. So if you happen to be wanting to get in the good graces of Jerry Seinfeld or MJF or even a wise man or two, that's something you could show them, I suppose. But either way, so this right here, right? This is going to be the MX Dark Salt 350. So just like I had up here a second ago, coming from the MX line, those all kind of have the same sort of thing going on here, right? And honestly, they might possibly all have the exact same stitching pattern in here too. I'd have to look a little bit closer, but it's possible. But either way, so you got these going on here, right? So it's all going to be very much the same, just a bunch of lines in there with like the various colors. So it's a pretty cool concept. I like it a fair amount, right? The color layouts or whatever, those weren't so great. Oh, excuse me, the color choices weren't so great. But the MX Oat one, the first one that they put out, I believe, definitely I'd say that they got it right the first time. They could have just stopped there, you know. And this one I did like when I saw the pictures initially. So I was kind of looking forward to getting it or whatever. But then I saw them in finish line while they were still like on their way to me. And I was like, well, maybe I didn't need these, because sometimes you get something and it just doesn't look as good in person as it looked in pictures, or the other way around once in a while too. So it's one of those things that they're not all going to be fantastic. I get it, but if you make a million shoes, I mean, some are going to have to be at the top, some are going to have to be at the bottom. That's just how things work. Not everything can be like equal, right? So this one right here, I'm not going to sit here and like talk down on it too much. It's just that for whatever reason, it just came up short in my eyes. I can't even say exactly what the deal was, but I just wasn't really super into it. And again, comparing wise, like this being the MX Cinder Yeezy Runner, MX MX Dark Salt, right? It's kind of hard to remember all these names sometimes. So very much similar in that they're just mixing in a bunch of colors. So it would have been cool to have seen more of these, if they had switched up and kept going and just varied the layout or varied the color choices. But I would have liked some more brighter ones, kind of like the MX Oats were. And now, moving along, we have this right here. So this is going to be the Yeezy 350 in the static colorway, right? So it's got the 3M laces. You can't quite see it, but just take my word for it, or just know that, because that's how that works. This is the most recent pair, right? These released in 2023, though if you look at the little tag thing on the inside there, they were actually made last year, somewhere in like the middle of the year, I think, right? Well, kind of. It was made in September 2022, and then they were released at some point this year, I think in September, because if I'm not, no, August. Because I remember I had gone to Philadelphia for that Impact New Japan Wrestling show, and these came out that same weekend. Either way, so this right here, and then these over here, this is going to be the static from 2018. So they're both very much the same. You can't quite tell, but the one thing that I noticed earlier is that the grays on the 2022 are just a little bit lighter than the grays over here. It's barely, like, from a distance here, looking at it like that, you probably can't tell. But if you like hold them up close enough and you just look at them long enough, yeah, you'll see it. And even to some extent, you might see like the stitching looks barely different down in there in some areas or whatever. Not a whole lot, but it's one of those things where like you can see differences if you're like all up on them or whatever. But if somebody's just passing by, you're not going to notice. And then the midsole here, it might look a little different as well, but you got to remember, when I got this pair, I didn't have as many shoes as I have now, so they were worn more frequently than they are now. I'd say like once every 3 to 4 weeks or whatever. So like, maybe once a month, sometimes twice a month. So these got a lot of wear. It doesn't look like it's so much on the upper, but when you look at the bottom, it's a bit of a mess down there. But either way, so if you're looking at the static 350s that came out, that were released this year, and you're wondering if there's any difference to the statics from 2018, there is not. That's the short version of that. I mean, you could say that one is slightly lighter than the other, sure, but I really feel like that's not going to be noticed. And also, I'm kind of wondering, like, if I had worn those older 350, those static 350s more often, I might not have even noticed, because they probably would have just been a little more dim anyway. Let's see. I'm still thinking about that good with the Jewish community card. Yeah, where'd that thing go? Yeah, did you see this thing? I don't know if you can even, what does that even say? It says, stand up to all hate. Adidas is proud to join the foundation to combat anti-Semitism and fight all forms of hate. Let's stand up to all hate together. All right. And it says on the back, hashtag stand up to Jewish hate. By wearing, posting, and sharing the blue square, this square right here, the universal symbol for fighting anti-Semitism. So there's that. Yeah. Moving back to what we were talking about. Never owned a pair of Yeezys? You're not missing too much. They're comfortable, like a lot of people will tell you. But there are a lot of shoes that are comfortable, and a lot of those other shoes that are just as or more comfortable are actually cheaper and probably available right now from various retailers. So there's that for you. But this one, last one, because this is number 8. I did 8 reviews today. I have 8 shoes here. Well, 8 on the couch, but there's like, how many is that? 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 14 down here on the floor of different colorways and such to go through. So these right here, this is the last pair that I picked up, right? After all those raffles and whatnot that they did when they brought everything back. Well, they didn't bring them back, but they found them in a warehouse or they had them unsold, whatever they did. Once all that stuff was done, somebody accepted my bid of $220 on the old StockX, and that's how I got this right here, which is the Yeezy 350 V2 in the Sulfur colorway with a fancy gum bottom. Check that out. It's very much like the Cinders, if anybody remembers the Cinders. I did a video on those some time ago because it was one of those black versus not quite black reviews, you know. So either way, this right here. Now, like I said before, sometimes they put things out and they're just the same color as other things and it's all similar, right? Let's see, that's what everyone says. Okay, yes, exactly. But the thing about this color is like, this is called Sulfur, right? This is called Resin. This is the Yeezy 450. Some of you guys might remember these. And these are basically the same color, right? I mean, this one has this little strip on the side that kind of gives it a little varied look. But overall, take my word for it or look into the camera, it's the same color. Now, on the other side of things, though, if I sit these down and grab this over here, this thing is also Sulfur and not quite the same, right? You can kind of tell it's a bit lighter. This is a Yeezy foam runner. So yeah, it's a little bit lighter. So it's kind of weird sometimes how they'll take two things and they'll call these two the same color and they'll look different. And they'll call these two different colors and they'll look the same. So I don't know what the deal is going on there, but you know, that's what Adidas or Yeezy is doing. Though to be fair, a lot of their color names are very weird anyway. So I'm just gonna overlook a lot of that. Now here's the situation though, going back to what I was talking about. Since these came from StockX, I thought, okay, well, there's that chance that they could not be real. So I had to go in and pull out all kinds of pairs or go through all kinds of boxes trying to narrow some things down or whatever. Luckily, stuff's decently organized. So the way I went at it, right? Actually, I'm going to read this comment before I finish that thought. I thought I was done copping for the year. Now Jordan got the Midnight Navy 3s dropping on the 16th. So one more Navy. You know, I did like those. There was another navy blue sort of 3 that came out within the last 2 years. Or was it a 4? Actually, I think there was 2. I think there was a 4 at some point and a 3. I like that color. Neither of those releases worked out for me, though. I believe it was the 4s that just sold out super fast. And it was like the release just came and went. Like, I didn't see any restocks or anything. It was just like, if you didn't get in at 10 a.m. Eastern on whatever day, too bad. And I was like, well, that's weird. But either way, so getting back to this, right? So since they came from StockX, I pulled out a whole bunch of other 350s because I have a fair amount of them. So we'll just start with these 3 over here. Kneel down and grab these. So what are we looking at? Desert Sage, right? The Zyon and the linen, right? The linen, you know, the strip gives it away. So these, right? The Desert Sage came out the month before these did, before the Sulfurs. These 2 came out, I believe it was this, I think it's like the same month as they did or whatever. So like February 2020. So I figured, okay, I'll take these 4 and I'll just kind of go over those and see where the similarities are, where the differences are, that whole thing, right? Actually, I got to stop one more time here. The Georgetowns. Yes. Scored the new Grinch Adidas pair, White Heart pair. I made that name up. They're great quality. Thought you might dig them. Normally I would, but because I'm trying to not buy a whole bunch of things and I already have a Grinch pair, I was like, I'm just going to ride this pair out. Also, the Beavis and Butthead Pumas came out, and so that was an unexpected must-have purchase for me. So any money that I would have given to the Grinch people went to the Beavis and Butthead people, which was Adidas. But anyway, so yeah, I pulled these out, right? And long story short, doing a lot of comparisons and all that stuff, I'm going to say that I'm cool with these, right? Because the thing is, looking at all these other ones that have a very similar look and very similar release dates. I figured, okay, I'll compare all the stuff, right? Inside to outside, box things and whatnot. And yeah, I'm looking at four total shoes, right? So you're going to see something on pairs like 1 and 2 that you may not see on 3 or 4. But then there's going to be something you see about 1 that you don't see on 2, but you see it on 3 and 4. So I was looking at all these things, and okay, all this stuff is all checking out, right? And I had done the same thing a few months ago with these right here, because these also came from StockX. This is the Marsh 350. And actually, I think these were made right around that same time, right? Yeah, these were made in January. These were made in February of 2020. So I was just going through comparing all the things or whatever. And when it was all said and done, I was like, okay, yeah, these look like they're fine. Everything that I'm seeing on here that might be worth looking into is looking like it's on the up and up, because all my other stuff came from like Adidas or Finish Line or Foot Locker or whatever. So I'm personally fine with these. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm like the legit check guy or whatever, because I'm not. I just figured if I have enough similar things, I'll just do my own little check. And as long as I feel good about it, I'm going to write it out, right? Besides, what could I even do if it wasn't? You know what I'm saying? But you do that just to kind of clear your mind, lighten the conscience or something. So there is that. But there we go. I have gone through all 8 pair, right? Which I tell you, recording the reviews earlier took what felt like forever. But this, I was able to just kind of fly through it because, it's a live session, right? So there's that. Like I said before, I was just doing this thing. So now I can point all those videos to this for all the little comparisons and whatnot. So quick recap and all that good stuff, right? Went through these. This is the Cinder, the MX Cinder foam runner, the Onyx Yeezy slide, the Carbon Beluga 350, the Granite 350, the the Slate Onyx 350 compact. This one is the Dark Salt 350 with your I Like Jewish People card, right? So that way you can get into all the cool clubs. And then we have these over here, the Static 350, and finish things up with this right here. This is going to be the Sulfur 350. And then down here we have the Resins, the Sulfur foam runners, the Resin 450s. I'll pull them up. The Resin 450, right? Remember that? The Black Static 350 from the Onyx 350 from, I think it was last year. The MX Rock from, I also think last year. It gets a little fuzzy. These were from this year. The Slate Bone 350 compact. This would be the foam runner in Sulfur. Had the Marsh 350 with a fancy 3M stripe. Had the Desert Sage 350 also with a fancy 3M stripe. A little further away than I want it to be. The Zyon 350, right? Remember that guy? That was a really good pickup right there. This, not better than this one though. This would be the Linen 350 with the fancy 3M stripe. I was just talking about these because I misspoke a minute ago. And this is the Black Static 350 with those fancy 3M laces. This is the Standard Static 350, also with 3M laces, but that being the one from 2018. The MX Oat, right? Remember those? I do. I also got my brother a pair. I don't remember how I was able to get him one, but I did. I think from Finish Line or Dick's. We have this right here, the Semi-Frozen Yellow 350, which is easily my number 1 of all of them. Got however many pairs, and no question, that's number 1. We have this. This is the Jade Ash, but it also had another name, and I can't remember what that other name was. And then there was the Slate 350, which was, oh my God, did you see the Slate video that I did? Anybody out there? That one brings back some memories that I would rather do without. So there we go. That's everything, and kept it under 30 minutes. Not too bad. I'm going to watch read these last few comments, and then get on out of here. While I'm doing that, if anybody happens to have any questions, right? Off topic or on topic, to no real rhyme or reason to these sort of things in this particular session. So if you got some questions that you want me to answer, or you want to hear my thoughts on something, say it in the little comment thing. Otherwise, I'm going to get on out of here in the next couple minutes. So let's see, where did I leave off? I'll find a Grinch Motu character instead. I guess the closest thing would probably be possibly Whiplash, maybe Leech, right? Because they were green. Mossman was also green. Who else was green in there? I guess the Snake Man, well, with the exception of Tongue Lasher, because he was pink. And I can't think of what the guy's name that was like red, but he was also a Snake Man dude. But yeah, so there's some guys in there that might be able to pull off the whole Grinch thing, but Mossman, he might be the one because he's kind of like furry, you know, or fuzzy or whatever. Do you remember his figure? Like it smelled like pine. I think I think even the recent ones did. Same with Stinkor. So let's see. YouTuber. I watch all the reviews. Oh, fantastic! Thanks to the Fortnite show. Beavis and Butthead Pumas. Yes. Where did I see those? Well, I got mine from Journeys, right? Let's see. Let me find this whole. Where's the screen share option? Let's see. Screen share. See if I can do this real quick here. And that is what I want to share. So I'm going to share that. And is it up there? There it is. Close this little ad thing. That won't go away. Limited quantity. So yeah, right here. It looks like they're sold out of a lot of sizes, but they were on here. They were also on Foot Locker, but they sold out on Foot Locker pretty quick. So I ended up getting my pair from here on Journeys, right? So, and for those of you who may or may not know, this actual channel started with a Beavis and Butthead review, the 3MC in black, many moons ago. I think it was January 6th, 2019 when I recorded that and released it on January 21st, which is like the channel's official birthday. Random facts for you. So there you go. There's that. Yeah, you should go ahead and pick up a pair somewhere if you can. I mean, and they might be in other places by now too. It's just that these were the only places that I knew had them. So yeah, Beavis and Butthead, Pumas. I'll be having those and talking about those in a couple days. I'm thinking Wednesday, maybe, because my Less Than Jake shoes are coming in this week too. So I'm going to sit down here and talk about those when I get them all at the same time. Sucker face guy was Leech. Yes, I remember him very, very well because he had that little button on the back and you could like stick them on surfaces. It's very cool. To young Tristan, and also now thinking about it, to present day Tristan as well. So there we go. I think that covers everything. So I'm going to get on out of here. Thank you to everyone who stopped in and whatnot. I do appreciate it because I can sit here and do this whole one-man show thing. I do it all the time during the day when I'm actually recording reviews. But having someone to talk to or whatever kind of makes these things move along in a different way. It makes it feel like it's a party situation. You know what I'm saying? But either way, I'm going to get on out of here. From me to you, have a nice rest of your day or rest of your night, whatever it is, wherever you are. You should expect to see an alert about a dream scenario review because I just watched that earlier today. And then later, some kind of quick thing about some Concord 11s and Gratitude 11s. So that's what's on the agenda for later this evening / tomorrow morning. Thanks again. I super appreciate it. Even though I don't always say it, it's always in here. Later, people.